Sometimes we tend to put the mixing stage as a very important stage. It is very important, but we tend to forget that the recording stage is as much, if not more important than the mixing stage. So getting it right at the source. This is one of the best advice I got. And I try to just work that out every time I'm in the recording studio.
Welcome to Recording Studio Rockstars. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is the podcast created to help you become a rock star of the recording studio. Hey rock stars, it's your host Lid Shaw, and welcome to Recording Studio Rockstars, bringing you into the studio to learn from recording professionals so that you can make your best record ever and be a rock star of the studio yourself. My guest today is Chris Saleem, a musician, music producer, and recording mixing engineer. Chris is renowned for his work in the French Christian music industry, having produced and mixed artists globally in Canada, USA, France, Belgium, and Switzerland. Chris has mixed and produced more than 75 albums over the past 14 years, and remarkably, works remotely with many of these artists over the internet from his home recording studio near Montreal, Canada. Chris's credits include Canadian Christian artist Liana Klassen, a Covenant Award winner, Canadian version of the Dove Awards, and Juno nominee, and French Christian artists Impact, Seb Demery, Luc Dumont, Andrian, and Peggy Polito, to name a few. Chris is also the creator of Mixdown.online, a resource website and YouTube channel designed to help you with your music production, recording, and mixing skills through cool tutorial videos and blog articles. Chris is a good friend of mine. He has an awesome Roland Space Echo and a really cool modern red couch in his studio. But more importantly, he is joining us on the podcast today to help us learn how to work with remote clients more effectively. He will be showing us 9 tips on recording, mixing, and producing clients remotely. So get out your notebooks and get ready to rock. Please welcome Chris Saleem to Recording Studio Rockstars. Chris, are you ready to rock, dude?
Je suis prêt, mon Lidge.
Oh, I love it, man. Je suis prêt. Primo is ready?
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
I am ready.
How about ready to rock? How do you say that en français?
Oh boy, it's not something we say a lot.
What do you guys say? You just like, passez-moi du vin?
Actually, we don't rock much.
You don't rock much.
So I don't know. It's a hard one to translate.
Well, all right, man. Well, we'll dig in anyway. I know you guys are making some great music. Tell us, I've done a brief introduction of you, but tell us more about who you are, how you got into music. Tell us a little bit about Mixdown.online.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to go back to my childhood. Okay, where at age 14. I remember in high school where my teacher was asking the class what we wanted to be when we grew up, what kind of career we were looking into. And I remember writing on the sheet of paper that I want to be a music producer. And it's a funny thing because back then I was playing drums. That was my main instrument back then. I started to play drums at age 12 in church. This is where I started to play. And so getting back to the school story, that was the only thing I was doing. So I wasn't recording anything. I wasn't into, music production. Didn't have any computer to record with, nothing. So, but I knew I wanted to be a music producer. So I loved music. I was very fascinated with music. And so that was my goal at that point. And the funny thing is the teacher replied to me by saying, find something else, find like a real job or something, real career,
But that's kind of insane though. Like you at 12, you knew you wanted to be a music producer?
At 14, actually, yeah.
Oh, okay. Still at 14, that's pretty impressive. I mean, I didn't even know I liked music until I was probably 18. No, that's not true. I knew a little bit before then. All right. So,
at some point
your teacher's your teacher's trying to give you some real advice, which is don't go into music production.
Exactly.
Become a music teacher.
Not even don't get into music, basically. So what happened afterwards, I was a church drummer, played at the youth meetings. And then I started to play in a band, and it was a pretty serious band. So we released our first French album. That was back in 95. And we ended up playing in France So that was my first overseas trip. So that was kind of cool, you know. You go and you travel with your band, you go on tour, even if it was only for one concert. So it wasn't a tour per se. When we spend a week there and just to, preparing for our show. And then, and then in France, we actually opened for a well-known band at the time, a Christian band called Petra.
Oh, right on, man, right on.
Yeah,
Très bien,
so we did.
Très bien.
So it was pretty cool. And so at that point, I knew I wanted to do music and live out of my art, you know, as a musician.
Well, that's cool. So you're a drummer at first, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Can you give us a beatbox?
A beatbox?
Yeah. What do you got for us?
Oh, my goodness. Okay. Something like that.
I like it. Sorry to put you on the spot there, but that's all right.
Thanks, Lidge.
You can put me on the spot later. Well, that's cool, man. How do you think that being a drummer has influenced you in your production style or the way you approach a record?
Okay, I would say like being tight, being on time is something really important. Like the groove is something really important. Like most of the work I do in the studio, most of the albums I produce, I end up playing the drums until these days. You know, once in a while I'm going to hire a drummer that is better than me, you know, depending on the genre and the style of music I'm working on. So if I'm working on a gospel, kind of a black gospel type of R&B stuff, I'm going to hire someone because that's not my type of drumming, you know?
Right. That's a really stylistic approach.
Yeah, exactly. To get back to the story I was saying about that band, we ended up, because I'm going to link everything back to your question afterwards. Okay. We decided to leave the French market, and we decided to go towards recording an English album, which we did, and we ended up recording a demo in Nashville. In your town, buddy.
Why didn't you call me, man?
And so we worked with a producer in Nashville. We had management in Nashville. So the goal was to build a press kit, a demo, you know, to shop for a label and stuff. And I think I was 19 or so, 19 or 20, something like that. And so I wasn't that experienced as a studio drummer. So that was actually one of my first recording experience as a drummer. So it was a bit rough, you know, and the bandmates I was playing with back then, they were a bit older than me and they had a bit more experience than myself. So I did the recording, and I remember being in the control room listening to the tracks, and it was okay, but not quite it, you know. So we decided to hire a session drummer for the demo.
Oh, man, your first studio experience as a drummer, and you've got to give it up already.
Exactly. So that was pretty rough, to be honest with you. You know, so that was a rough one. But at the same time, I ended up meeting Chris McHugh. He's a famous country drummer. Mm-hmm. Back then, he was a drummer for a Christian band, White Heart, back in the 90s. Very, very good drummer. So you actually probably saw him playing at the Grammys more than once. Okay. And so that was an amazing experience just to see this professional session drummer, you know, recording drums in a professional studio. I actually learned a lot. And I told myself it was going to be the first and last time that was going to happen, you know. So from that point on, I just practiced my art, practiced my drumming on the click, and the click became my friend.
Yep.
And then when I started my recording career as a producer and as a musician, that part was very, very important, you know, to be tight, to be on the click, but at the same time to feel the song and to play the song. So without the click without being slave to the click, but having the click slave to you, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Well, there's this expression of bury the click, you know, where when somebody gets so tight playing to a click track that you don't hear the click anymore because it's just buried in the kick and the snare sound.
No, exactly. And, you know, the guitar player I played with back then, Ken, my good friend Ken, that guitar guy was like so tight, you know, that is part of his nature. And the joke we made back then was saying that he was born with a click in his butt, you know.
Born with a click in his butt. I love it.
So, and I remember when on my first recording production in 2003, it was a live album, And during that album, we recorded it was like a medley, an acoustic medley that we played live. So it was like Ken playing his acoustic guitar with another guitar player and the artist in front of 2,000 people. And the way I did the session, we recorded the entire concert once, and the day after we recorded the same set list in front of an empty hall. Okay, to have like an option and do some editing afterwards, but not for this specific song, because this song wasn't on a click. So it was a medley, an acoustic medley. So it was, you go with the flow and stuff.
Yeah.
Now, his guitar was just slightly like not tuned well. But you know,
oh boy.
Yeah, oh boy. So when we got back into the studio and we listened to the playbacks, we were like, wow, what the heck is this? Man, your guitar is off, You're out of tune, my friend.
Yeah.
And so there was no way for us to do a bit of montage and stuff and to do editing, because that was the only take we had. And something special was happening with the singer and the crowd. So, the crowd was singing the songs and stuff. So there was no way, it wasn't an option to get that song off the album. Mm-hmm. So Ken, that freaking tight guitar player, we ended up re-recording his own guitar in the studio without any click, because he didn't play with a click on the live show. But he was able to play the entire song, to redo the exact same thing he did at the recording time.
So he was able to play the part
exactly the same way
and make it feel like it was the real deal.
Like Lich, it was exactly the same.
But it was in tune this time.
This time it was in tune. So if you listen carefully, you could probably, if you have some like good ears, you could probably hear the sound of the room, where you could hear the kind of out of tune guitar, on the natural reverb of the room. Hey, if you listen very carefully, but
some of the best reverbs are Lexicon reverbs, and the Nimbus and R4 are two new reverbs with exponential audio. And both of those, I noticed that they are designed to have chorusing effects built into the reverbs. And that's part of what makes a really great sounding reverb. So who knows, maybe having the slightly out of tune guitar in the room with an in-tune guitar up front actually sort of created a better room sound for it all.
Yeah, the real story, we did that on purpose just to get that sound.
There you go. Well, I like hearing your story, how it kind of started up getting beat up as the drummer, and then it was the guitarist's turn. And, it's true for everybody in that process of going into the studio for the first time, or even playing gigs in certain situations. And you just have to go through those mistakes to learn them and finally understand them. And sometimes the only way you're ever going to get really good at preventing those mistakes is by experiencing them the first time around,
Yeah, exactly. At some point you need to to hit the wall to get better.
Yeah.
And so
hit the wall. Well, so I like to ask guests to share an inspirational quote, something to get us excited about hitting the studio. Have you got anything for us that you'd like to share with the rock stars, Chris?
Yeah, I got something here. This is a cool quote. Like once in a while on my Instagram feed, I post like a very nice picture with a quote. So I love quotes. And the one I posted this week was pretty cool. It says, "The goal isn't to live forever, but to create something that will."
Nice. So we're not just making music for ourselves. We're making music to, be there for everybody else forever. That's a bold statement too.
It is.
Do you feel like that really applies to us all? I mean, how does that apply to somebody who's like, I just want to make music for fun, or are we making music that needs to sort of make an indelible stamp on the world forever?
I think it depends it depends on the person, I would say for most of us, that's the goal. For most of us, creating is very important, as musicians, as creators. Yes, there's some of us will only do music and make music only for fun. Yeah, that happens, but when we're talking about people that are creating, that are writing music, writing lyrics, when you get your guts out on a sheet of paper and, on tracks and stuff, recording your music, your craft, I'm going to have a hard time to believe it's only for fun in a sense. There's, maybe there's always a part that wanted to be a bit more than just the fun part, Well, from what I
one takeaway for me too is this idea of goal setting that creeps into everything we do if you want it to, whether you're training for a marathon. That was sort of my first example, is that I decided I wanted to learn how to run a marathon. And crazy enough, I wanted to learn how to run it barefoot too. That's a whole nother story.
Yeah, you're gonna need to tell me more about that later on.
So I got halfway through my training and I realized it was just too much for me. And I had to finally just make this reluctant decision to cut my goal in half and do a half marathon. And it was really sort of a bummer at first, but later on I realized as I finished a half marathon, and did the entire thing barefoot, I got to the end, I was like, wait a minute, I just ran a half marathon barefoot, and it was like, it only was possible because I set that original goal that was a big goal that I still, achieved something that was really a big deal for me at that time. And so I could see that applying to music too. It's like, if you try to create something that lasts longer than you do and set your sights really high like that, even if you create something that is, that doesn't last forever and, you're not the next Beatles, it does influence the quality of your work. And, you're going to end up making something that is so much better and that is really quite good as a result of setting your sights there. So that's cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, so now, how about also sharing with us a story about an important failure, which you kind of did with your drumming experience. But do you have any good anecdotes for kind of a nightmare in the studio?
A nightmare, yeah. I have a few, but this one in particular is quite crazy. That was 8 years ago, I think. We were starting our day, me and my production partner Jimmy, and we were at that time, like even today, but at that time I had a lot of work. The schedule was crazy. So we started our day, opened up the computer, opened the my Cubase session, and wasn't able to find my session. My session was lost. And I was looking at the computer, looking at the drive and stuff. Okay, the drive is not there. I said, whoa. Rebooted the computer, look for the drive again, it's gone. So my working hard drive was not present in my Windows. So I started to freak out. So I know something was going wrong, and I just took the drive, went to the computer shop in my town here in Saint-Hyacinthe, and the guy took the drive, tried it out, and told me, your drive is dead. There's nothing to do with this. Throw that in the garbage. I said, whoa. Now the thing, Lidge, is I was very bad with backups back then. So I had to learn the hard way.
Yep.
So my last backup was 3 weeks old. Now, it doesn't seem like a long time, but, in my situation, 3 weeks was, worth maybe 10 grand of work that was done, within these 3 weeks, like brass session recordings and stuff. And, recording that, it was not only mixing stuff, but a lot of recording stuff that's going to be very hard to recreate. So I need to do something with that drive. So I called a company in Montreal that was specialized for data recovery and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I called them and they told me, okay, we'll pass you right away. It's going to be $150 just to look at the drive. And they looked at the drive. They called me back a few hours after, letting me know that one part was defective. So they have to order a new part, but there's no guarantee they're going to be able to retrieve all the data.
Wow.
So that wait lasted 3 days. I lost like 10 pounds in 3 days. And they called me 3 days later and said, you know what, we almost succeeded on retrieving all of the data, but another part of the drive was defective. So basically the day after they called me back and saying, everything's okay, we retrieve all of the data and here's your new hard drive. So
that's pretty incredible. I actually have heard stories from friends who had hard drives go down, and then they found a company online that would rescue their drive through the internet. There's actually accessed it or something. And it was like $1,200 for them to go through and, incrementally rescue all their data. So
it cost me $1,800 back then.
Oh my God. Wow. That's a lot of work, dude.
It is, but I got a free hard drive.
So you got a free hard drive. There you go. You basically had an $1,800 lesson on backing up your data and making, realizing the importance of it. And you don't know that stuff initially. Initially, you just bust your butt making a record. You work really hard on creating stuff. You end up with doing a bunch of projects, and then your hard drives are getting full, and, you might find that you need to do it at some point, but you forget to do it. And it's when it catches up with you and catches you by surprise that it really really
you
ruins your
freak
day.
out. You freak out when that happens.
Yeah.
But when when you pay the company $1,800 to get your data back, even if it's a lot of money, you're happy. Trust me.
Yeah, well,
it's
that's
a relief.
great. It was $1,800. Basically, it was $1,800 to get whatever $8,200 worth of material back.
Exactly.
Or 10,000.
Worth it.
Yeah, somebody
Learn my
else do the
lesson.
math. All right, cool. Well, Chris, let's jump forward to the thing that we're so excited about, which is getting into sharing your 9 tips with the rock stars. You have graciously agreed to share with us 9 tips on recording, mixing, and producing clients remotely because you have a lot of experience with that. Maybe give us a brief introduction to what it means to record remotely, and then we can get into your teaching today.
Yeah. So if I go back to when I started producing, it was through some artists, Christian French artists that I was friend with, So I recorded that first live album I was telling you about earlier. And from that point on, that album was being distributed in France, Switzerland, all these French countries in Europe. And so I ended up working with a lot of French artists afterwards. So I remember having my first call out of Paris. Somebody it was back in 2006 when I got that call, and I thought it was a friend making fun of me at that time. So I was actually trying to figure out who. Exactly. I thought it was a prank call, and I was trying to figure out who was the guy teasing me, So it was for real. So that was my first international, if I can say, client. And so I jumped right into the, like we say, remote recording or production. And that was back in 2006. And back then it was a bit harder than it is today. Okay,
yeah,
so
right.
Okay, with the internet connections and the high-speed internet connections and stuff, they weren't as fast as they are today. So it was a bit of a challenge. In that case, back in 2006, we did a few things remotely, but they flew in to record some vocals and stuff. And I think they were here for the pre-production of the album as well. But afterwards, I produced a lot of artists remotely, meaning that I work on the arrangement, the pre-production of their songs remotely. Okay, so they send me a song with guitar vocals or just piano vocals, okay, just to have an idea of the song. And me and my team, we work on the arrangements. We do the pre-prod, we do the actual recording with the artist out of the studio. Okay, like out of the country, basically.
Yeah. So I think that's the initial head-scratching question for anybody when they hear about recording remotely is you're thinking, well, how do I record somebody? I mean, don't they have to be right in front of my microphone right here?
Yeah.
So it sounds like part of the concept is that, you're a drummer, so you're producing the drums yourself right there in your studio. You maybe have great musicians right there in Montreal, so you're able to bring them in and produce the tracks, while the artist, who's the singer, is over in France, for example.
Exactly. They have the songs, I have the team.
Well, so keep telling us more about that. What are some of the first things that people hope to be able to do when they're making a record remotely with you that you have to, debunk as far as myths? So there's things that people expect to be able to do, or is it more that nobody thinks they can do anything and then you surprise them at how much is possible?
One of the question I get a lot from artists that want to work with me but are afraid a bit is the how are we going to do this? How are you going to be able to arrange my songs without me being there?
Yeah.
So that is one of the main questions I get a lot. So how are you going to manage to give me what I want without me being there?
Yeah. So what's the first step in something like that?
So first of all, the number one tip I have is to build the trust from the start. Okay, so building the trust is very important. This is gonna set the tone for the rest of the project. Okay, let's say when I meet for the first time, I meet a client that is overseas and wants to record a production with me. We get into a Skype call. I make the connection. I contact the client. We talk. So there's a lot of talking, a lot of communication going on. And I set up the tone by explaining to the client all the production steps I am going to do on his album. Okay, starting with pre-production arrangements, what that means, and then what we're going to do is we're going to jump into the recording, and what that means. And this is where we're going to hire some session musicians, and I'm going to play the drums, and we're going to record everything we arranged in the first phase of the recording. So I separate that into phases.
Right. So, and that's a kind of knowledge and understanding that you have now because you've done this before, right? You've been through the experience enough to sort of analyze your own process and be able to educate somebody right at the start of what that's going to look like.
Yeah, exactly.
What advice might you have as far as communicating that stuff when you're earlier on, when you don't really understand it all so much yet? Like, what do you remember about trying to communicate and building that trust before you really, really knew what it was going to be like?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I mean, was it just sort of like you kind of had a feeling for what it might look like and you just start there?
That's what I did. Yeah, exactly.
Just trust your own process.
At some point, yeah, you have a process. Everyone has his own process on making his own music. So I think you can start by using this process to apply to an online production process. But it doesn't matter the process you use. You just need to explain it well to
that's great.
The client.
I think that's great advice because I think for people listening, they might have a first reaction thinking, wow, that's so cool that Chris is doing this, but I don't know how to do all those things that he's doing yet. And how would I explain it? And I think that's great advice. It's like, trust your own process and just carefully explain it to people ahead of time.
The key is to explain it well to the client, to the artist you're going to work with. And don't brag, don't brag about stuff you did. And you need to be clear and transparent.
Yeah.
And you need to be, And something that is going to gain a lot of trust from the client as well is when it's talking about money. This is something you need to do in the first stage.
Right.
Of talking. This is another advice I have for you guys is to be transparent when it's about money issues. So you need to talk about how you're going to manage money, how the money thing is going to work out throughout the project.
Yeah.
And once you get, into these specific money thing, at that point, if they can trust you with money, they can trust you with anything else.
Well, I think one of the challenges with money conversations is when you feel like you don't have an answer. People always they just want to say, how much is it going to cost? And there are some things that you feel like you can answer that accurately, where you can say, oh, it'll be this much to do this thing. But then there are other things where you're like, how do I do that? I mean, sometimes it takes long, sometimes it's quick. And I've learned that when you're transparent about saying what you can't really answer, that also builds trust with people.
Yeah, a lot, for sure.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So don't feel like you have to be a know-it-all for every question.
Yeah, because if you do, it sounds a bit too fake, in my opinion.
Yeah, trust me, man. I'm faking it all the time. No, just kidding.
Awesome.
All right, what's our second tip for today?
Yeah, second tip is listen to your client's needs. Okay, something that is very important, especially if you're producing the album. And even if you're only mixing the album. Now, mixing online is a bit more, I would say, a bit more easier because it's more common these days. We have mastering services, mixing services that are online. But, production, like an entire production made online, this is a bit more complicated. So it's really important to listen to your client's needs, meaning that you need to ask them questions. This is something I do. When I first meet with a client, I ask a lot of questions. So I don't talk a lot about myself. I ask a lot of questions. I want to know them more, and I want to make sure I'm on the target when I'm going to work on their music. Okay, so ask them about, the music they love, what they listen to, asking them to give me some music references so I can, it's going to help me, giving me ideas for the arrangements and stuff, if it fits with their songs, and knowing them well enough to advise them on the references they gave me. So let's say, for example, I have that, that person I'm working with, and she sends me, let's say, some Alicia Keys references. And when I listen to her songs, they sound country.
Right.
So I'm going to have to know the person well enough to advise them that maybe the reference you sent me are not well suited for your songs, the songs you wrote. So, so there's a lot of that going on as well. So basically,
or ask them what it is about these references that make you excited, because it might be something not so obvious. It might not be the drum sound and the guitar sound and the keyboard sound. It might, or even the tempo. It might be like, oh, I just like how bold she is about saying that she was crying in this one line or something like that.
Exactly, because that's a good point, Lidge, because when I listen to a reference, I'm going to listen to the entire production or maybe the drum groove. I'm a drummer, so I'm probably going to focus more on the groove, maybe on the separate, choruses and verses, all these differences in two different sections of the songs. I'm going to listen as a music producer would listen. But yeah, a client or an artist could, give you a reference based on the reverb sound on the vocal,
Yeah.
I think something very silly as that. So
I agree with you. I think that listening to a client and remembering that what they hear is not going to be the same thing that you hear. You may find parallels, but that's the beauty of collaborating with people is that, the person you're working with draws different inspiration from things. So finding out what that is.
And you need to produce for the client and not produce for yourself. And this is something I learned. Yeah, I learned it the hard way as well. I remember back in when I first started, I was working with that artist a local artist from Montreal. And I was so into it as a music producer that I took, everything personally.
Right.
And I remember, we were arguing a lot. I was arguing a lot with the artist. And at some point, I just told the artist, you know what, if that's what you want, no problem. I'm not going to put my name on your album.
I love it, man. And arguing in French is so awesome too. It's like a Monty Python movie or something. Exactly. Hurling the cow over the ramparts of the castle.
So poor girl, I made her cry, and that was a very that's another not too proud moment of my production career.
Wow.
So turned out good afterwards, but so the lesson I've learned out of this is, don't produce for yourself, produce for your client, give the client what she wants, what they want, and this way they're going to come back. Yeah,
indeed. Well, that's great. All right. So now how about our third, or does that wrap it up for number 2, listening to the client? Are we ready for tip number 3?
I'm going to say write a production or mixing agreement. So whatever you're doing as a service, if it's a mixing service you're offering online, make sure you have an agreement. It doesn't need to be complicated, just need to have everything well written. Like, for example, if it's a mixing agreement, you can talk about, a limit on revisions, for example. That is going to have to be in the agreement if that's your thing. If you limit the revisions that are available for you to work on the mixes, you need to write everything down. If it's a production, I always have a starting date or a starting month, basically, and the end date or end month. So the production is going to be between starting like in April and going until maximum October, for example. Because it all depends on the client's schedule as well. Like in my case, and for a lot of us, we're not going to be dealing with artists that are doing music on a full-time basis. Right. That happens. Right. But we're dealing with artists that are doing that on a part-time basis. They have like a real job, if I can say that, but they have like a 9-to-5, Monday to Friday work week. So you need to work around their schedules as well. So meaning that an album on a regular full-time basis would probably last maybe 3 months. In the case of a regular client, would last maybe 6 to 8 months.
Well, that's very interesting. So one of the things that just occurs to me too is when you're working remotely with somebody who's overseas, you've got a time difference. So that must work out to your benefit too, in that you get to work a regular daytime schedule if you want to, and that happens to be a nighttime schedule for them when they're free after work.
That happens a lot, which is very good.
That's great.
Especially with my clients in France. And I have one working with me at the moment. She's from l'île de la Réunion, which is on the east coast of Africa.
Wow.
It's a small French island, yeah.
And so, Rockstar's a reminder, if you happen to be a night owl and you want to only work at night, make sure that you're trying to pick up clients in the West, not in the East.
There you go.
You could be like a New York producer and only work with clients from California, just so you get that benefit of the extra 4 or 5 hours.
Exactly. So write a production and mixing agreement. So put everything in that agreement. Everything you think of, think that it's important to put in. Like, date on the delivery of the product, for example, and payment policy. This is something really important. So you have to put the payment policy in the agreement, So on my side, what I usually do is I divide the project into different stages.
Right.
So when I go into pre-production, what I ask the client before we start that stage, I ask for the amount of money it's going to cost me to work that stage out. So I always get paid in advance.
That's great.
Especially
so
when I'm working remotely.
There might be an initial pre-production payment. Then there might be a tracking payment. Then there might be a post-production payment and a mixing payment. I guess, depending if you're really spreading it out over a bunch of time.
Yeah, exactly. Or you can go by monthly payments. But what I do if it's on a monthly basis, I just arrange the schedule according to the payments. It's funny to say, but yeah. So let's say in April, the client send me some money. So in April, I'm going to, work that X amount of hours, depending on the money they transferred.
I think that's a great tip about breaking up the payments and breaking it up into sections. For somebody who hasn't done production or mixing enough to really understand their own process or what it might look like, what are some typical segments or sections you want to recommend that they consider starting with?
I'm going to recommend starting by the arrangement part of the production. So that's always the first part I work with. So I sit down on Skype with the client. I listen to the songs. So so that is part of the arrangement. I'm going to evaluate the work that needs to be done. I'm going to start working the arrangement with my production partner. So I always collaborate when it's time to do arrangement. I don't like working alone. I do it when I have to, but I love collaboration. And that is a plus for the client anyways, for the end product. So, but this is the first section, arrangements or pre-production, whatever you want to call it. And the way I set that up into my DAW is it's in a way that it's going to be easier to get into the recording stage afterwards, because that is going to be my second stage, the recording stage. And then I'm going to start with drums, bass, guitars, piano, all the instruments, and then going to the vocals.
Yeah.
Even if we have like a crappy vocal take that we're going to keep during the arrangements, the main vocal is going to be into the recording stage. So the recording stage can now also be divided into two parts, the music and then the vocals.
Yeah. So we're almost getting into maybe some of the other tips here, but one thing that I want to point out as a reminder for you rock stars, in case you haven't been there before, is we think of Skype or Google Hangouts and these video chat tools, FaceTime, there's a new one from Google called Duo, which is another FaceTime kind of thing. And they're all very, very cool. And they allow us to see each other and communicate and hear each other and stuff. In fact, Chris and I are using Skype right now for this interview. Chris is in Montreal. I'm in Nashville. But it's just a reminder, it's still a one-way communication at a time. So you can't play music together. You can't sing a harmony while somebody else is singing and strumming a guitar over Skype. What you can do is somebody can play their song to you, and then you can then pick up your guitar and play them back an idea, and then they can. So it's sort of like a back and forth, sort of like
exactly.
Think about it like old school walkie-talkies where you have to go over and out.
Awesome. Yeah, you're right. But something I did on a production not too long ago is I actually asked the artist to sing me the verse, the chorus of her song on the click. So I give her the tempo and record yourself with your iPhone. I don't care. Follow the click, sing to me the verse, sing to me the chorus, the bridge, send me these files. So, and then cool. I use these files as dummy tracks to craft the arrangement.
Cool. And cool. Just don't tell your client they're called dummy tracks. Well, that's awesome, man. I like that. That's really cool. And I like that somebody with even an iPhone and some sort of metronome can send you something simple. Maybe we're going to get into that in a minute, but I imagine that that's one of the challenges for working remotely. Now, remember, rock stars, we're not talking about recording a band who's in France if you're in the US. We're talking about recording the singer, the songwriter. So at some point, that singer either needs to come to your studio or they need to be able to record themselves where they are, right? And is now the time to talk a little bit about how you manage to record them where they are?
So I'll go with my tip on that, where it's coach your client with basic recording techniques. Okay, this is very important, especially if they are going to record their own vocals in their home studio. And this is something I did quite a few times. And I remember the first time I did that was in 2009, I believe, with an artist from France. And she didn't have the budget to fly down to Montreal to record her own vocals. So we did all the arrangements, recording and everything. And I actually had a lot of Skype calls with her and advise her on the equipment to buy. She wanted to invest like some nice money into her home studio. She wanted to build a nice room for her to record her own vocals, but she knew nothing about the recording aspect of things. So she had a laptop, a Mac laptop, and not even a sound card. So
she didn't have recording studio rock stars, did she?
At all? No, because there's none in French. And so I helped her out. I coached her a lot on buying some good equipment and even soundproofing her room. Make sure the acoustics are not, too bad to record. So, eliminate all the reflections, and with, basic damping and stuff that you can easily add into a home room. So, and we, she had a license for Logic, which I just can't stand Logic. I'm not a Logic guy, but it doesn't matter. So it's something you can record with. So use that. And I helped her out. And that was it. When it was time to record the album, after a lot of a few coaching sessions, the way I love to work when people record themselves and I'm not present, basically what they do first is they send me a file. They record themselves. They do it like a test run through, and they send me the file. I listen to it, and then I can readjust with them, as far as the mic distance goes and a few techniques, if there's a lot of civilians, get a bit further away from the mic or maybe on the side or something. We're going to have to fix a few things, physically. I don't want to be stuck with a lot of stuff to fix in the mixing stage, so I want the recording to be as best as possible.
That's cool.
And it's a learning experience. Yeah. So it's a learning experience for them. They love it. They like it. And so this is what I do.
Well, it's really cool. I mean, I think that instinctively we might think, well, how in the world are you going to tell somebody how to record themselves? But really, when you begin to break it down, it's really quite doable. I mean, it's like if I'm going to guess right off bat that you probably coach them to not record with compression. So you probably want them to record a good, clean sound signal for the vocal in, no compression, make sure there's plenty of headroom, but no noise, and then send you that. And then you can always treat that in the mix yourself.
Exactly. No compression, no EQ. You gain stage properly. So you have to, teach them about gain staging. So, because they're going to tend to send you a very hot signal. That happens all the time.
Yeah.
The first test file you get, it's off the top, it's the signal is clipping and it's close to clipping. So you just need to coach them about gain staging. And
then they're like, well, I couldn't hear myself.
Yeah, exactly. That's the classic answer.
And then, another thought too, is that as you do a couple of these, you begin to realize, all right, now when I coach somebody on how to position themselves on the mic or do the test recording or try it close, try it a little further, it's always the same thing I'm teaching them. So probably you could make a nice little training video that you send all your clients, like here's my 5 videos that teach you how to set up your studio and record yourself. And, it gets easier and easier every time you do it.
Yeah, that's actually one of the reason why I started Mixdown Online, my YouTube channel on, coaching and mixing coaching, like mixing, recording, and music production coaching.
Is to help teach. Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah, so this is part of the reasons. But yeah, producing a video for your clients is a very good idea. Yeah, of course.
All right, so let's jump back for a sec. And I think you had another one where you were going to still talk about the costs of recording. But a reminder, Rockstar, that, this process of teaching how to record yourself in your own studio, that's not an unexpected part of what you need to do for this remote recording. That's a very expected part. Of course, after you work with a client that begins to know this, you won't have to teach them anymore. They get it and they start, they're good on their own. But initially you have to teach them. And you might initially look at that and go like, oh, how am I going to charge them for that? But remember, put a different spin on it. You're actually offering them this great service of like helping them, being a consultant while they set up their studio, while they learn how to record their own vocal for the first time. And your clients are probably going to be thrilled about it and thank you for billing them and teaching them how to do that stuff. So adding that as one of your expenses in the agreement initially is probably going to make a lot of sense.
But you know what, Lich? Actually, I never charge for this.
There you go. All
Funny
right.
thing,
That's right. Set me straight, Chris. Set me straight.
when I have the gig, the entire production to work on, I just coach them for free, so I help them out. It's part of the helping part of, the project.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like for this client especially, she ended up producing her second album with me, with the same formula. And I got her sisters. She has 2 sisters. And I work with them as well. I produced 2 albums for one of the sisters and maybe 2 songs with the other one. So, by helping them out without charging them and just by being there for them on building their studio, I ended up with 2 or 3 more albums to produce. So more work in the end.
That's very cool. That essentially is the concept of over-delivering. So your client is going to be thrilled that you over-delivered this teaching and helping them get all set up and recording themselves. And I would think for any singer, it would be a thrill to have your first home studio with a mic where you're like, wow, I can just sing in my own relaxed environment whenever I want to and, send the stuff to you. That's awesome.
Exactly. It's awesome.
So that was that was number 5 there, right?
Yep.
Evaluate the total cost of a project before starting and including all those different elements. Did we skip anything as far as we were also sort of teaching a little bit about, mixing,
No, I think
mixing process? Are there stages of the mixing that you want to bill for differently, or is it mostly just like one stage for you?
We actually went into evaluating the cost.
Yeah.
I think we're at that point now.
Yeah.
So evaluating the total cost of a project before starting. So this is something I always do. I always give it's a close estimate. Even if I charge by the hour on projects, the only thing that I'm flat rate is mixing and mastering. But apart from that, I'm going to go by the hour. So I'm going to evaluate the amount of hours it's going to take me to work on the production. And be clear with the client. What the client wants is, the client wants to know how much it's going to cost him in the end. Mm-hmm. So before starting the project, he wants to have a very good idea because he has a budget to follow.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. So I give them a very good idea. And what I do on my side, I just calculate all the hours we work. And most of the time, I'm very, very pretty close to the actual estimate. Because at first, when I first started, I just did package deals. So meaning that everything was, the price I was giving up at the beginning of the production was the final price. Mm-hmm. So I did that for years. And at some point, I just decided to just do that for mixing and mastering, but not for the actual production.
Yeah, because production is a little hard to predict, right?
It's hard to predict, and it all depends on the client's demands.
Right.
So this is why it's hard to predict. So what I do is I'm going to set up a rough estimate with, the typical drum, guitar, bass, piano, vocal time, and, stuff you see on regular music. And then if the client wants to have like an orchestra or a violin or a cello to be added up to the project, I'm just going to add that part on, basically. Yeah. But it's not going to be part of the estimate, So
right. Well, it's
a rough
like
estimate, but
what do they say? There's sort of jokes about that in mastering. Here they're like, mastering will cost you this much, and if you want to be there at the session, it's going to cost you like 10 times more or whatever. Because I'm sort of butchering the anecdote here, but the idea is that, when you're interacting with a client, you're basically giving up control of the process because you're relying on them to have some sense of like, guiding you both through the process, and you don't have control over it. So how are you going to come up with a flat fee for it? You can come up with something, but whereas in mixing and mastering, those are things you typically do on your own. And so there's more of an opportunity to say, well, I know I can really keep it within the confines of this strategy and this kind of time frame and stuff. Well, that's cool.
Perfect. So that's it for this point.
Well, so then what about online tools? I know you wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, I would say use online tools to facilitate communication. Like you were saying earlier, we're talking about Skype, Facebook Messenger video. So I have a client that loves Messenger. So we always communicate through Messenger. Of course, there's the typical phone. So one of my clients right now, she lives in l'île de la Guadeloupe, which is in the Caribbean. It's a French island. And, she always have trouble with her internet connection. So we just end up using the phone. Emails, of course, emails are emails. It works a lot. So basically on your end, what I would suggest you to have is a very good internet connection, because you're going to be the one initiating the calls and the Skype calls and all these communication tools. So you need to be available. You need to always be available. And when you get an email from a client, respond ASAP. So you just need to be to keep the communication part of the project to be top notch.
Right. That's sort of tip number 7 there, right? Which is communicate often.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I passed the point, but yeah, it is part of that point actually.
Well, I know when we talk about online tools, I think that that's a really awesome moment for us to dig into some details. So I want to jump back to tip number 6 there about using online tools. Can you give us kind of a list of, you mentioned Messenger, you just said email. What email do you like to use, and what does your email world look like that keeps you organized?
My email world, everything is managed by Gmail.
Okay.
So I don't have like a Mixdown@Gmail account. It's my typical Mixdown online account, but it's managed by Gmail.
Okay.
So it's very easy. So I'll link to the my Google account, link to my calendar. Everything is linked, so it's very easy to manage.
Yeah.
And I have folders, so every time I have a new client, I set up a folder in my Gmail account. So all the emails, I manage to just send them right away to that folder.
Okay, so you sort of set up email rules when something comes in, it just goes right to that folder?
Exactly.
That's cool.
So it's easy to manage.
What about scheduling? How do you make sure that you and your client are on the same page as far as when you schedule to get together and do a little recording or have a Skype meeting?
Now, scheduling is a bit easier, opposed to working with a local artist. A local artist, you need to, be available. Both of the parties needs to be available. Now, the only thing I need that we both need to be available is for the communication time on Skype when we schedule a Skype call.
Okay.
But besides that, what I'm going to tell the client to say, okay, like this week I am going to work on this day with, on this song and this song. We're going to work on the drum recording this week and guitar recording next week. So I'm just going to give them the days I'm going to be working on their material, and that's it, And then I'm just going to have to schedule my stuff with my musicians and players and stuff like that.
Okay, cool. So you don't necessarily have the client observing or listening in during the session?
Never.
Interesting. Fascinating. I think that would have been a first question. That's great.
They don't need to. What I do, though, is I try to Skype with them, during a session, just so they can meet my team. Mm-hmm. So it's always cool for them to meet the team and to meet the players that are playing on their albums and their production. So that's kind of cool. But no, they don't stay online to listen to the recording part and stuff,
That's cool. Yeah, that's interesting.
At that point, I think the most important part is the arrangement side. When we're talking about phases, the arrangement and production phase, when you first craft the album, this is the most important part for the client to be involved. Mm-hmm. So at that point, you need to have them really involved into this phase. And once, that phase is over and they're happy with what came out of that phase, when it's time to recording and stuff, they trust you at that point. And you basically do what needs to be done. Okay,
so when you have something recorded, you are sending an MP3 to your client through email typically, and then they would listen and then they can sort of send you back notes, or do you meet together over Skype and then you play the music for them in real time and then they just respond right there over the Skype call?
Yeah, exactly. I share a Dropbox folder with them. This is something I do. So, these are part of my my online tools to facilitate communication. So meaning that a Skype folder is something very important, or Google Drive, whatever you have that you can share with the client. You need the folder.
Sorry, you said a Skype folder. You mean a Dropbox folder?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I mean
Sorry, we're jumping around, man. We're all over the place.
Yeah, so something that is very important is to set up a Dropbox folder or a Google Drive folder, like a cloud folder that you can share with your client. So this is what I do every time I have a song ready for them to listen to. I just drop that into the Dropbox folder, and it's very easy for them to listen to the work that you do.
Now, a quick question for you. How does the client know that you just dropped something in the Dropbox folder? Do they get an automatic notification about it, or do you have to sort of send an email following up?
I always send an email.
Okay.
They do get a notification on their desktop, usually, if they install the Dropbox app on their computer. But I always, just by respect, I just send them an email. The songs are on Dropbox, and just listen to them and get back to me.
All right. So they listen to the song, and then they have some thoughts about it. How do you like them to communicate back to you with all their thoughts?
Now, I'm going to share a Google document. This is what I like to do. That document is open for each songs. And this is where we can put some mix notes or production notes for them and for myself.
Great.
So we share that same document.
And they can do that on their own time. If they're on a different time schedule, that you could be asleep and they could be sending you mix notes.
Exactly. So this is very easy. And then, I check up the notes the day after. Okay, so this is what we need to do. And if there's some confusion there, just call them, Skype them. And that's it. We go through the notes together, and we're trying to fix stuff up.
Cool. All right. Well, we got 2 more tips, right?
Yep. So I would say tip number 8, write a guideline document to your client. So very useful, especially when you have a mixing gig. Okay, for example, you need to let the client know in a document like some rules that needs to be followed. For example, you need to export your audio tracks from bar 1. Even if the music doesn't start at bar 1, just export or bounce all the tracks at the same start point, especially in mixing. Because, we're not using all the same DAWs. So I think transferring, when it's time to transfer an audio track, audio files, like there's some rules that needs to be respected to make my life easier. So this is what I do. I just send my client like a document, stating all these suggestions.
And again, it could be, we live in a world of easy videos. You could create a series of YouTube videos that explain exactly how to do it. You could do a screen share. You could even have, if you want to, you could own like 5 different DAWs and do a little how-to with each one to show your client how to do it. And if you don't, there's probably a YouTube video out there on mixdown.online because Chris has already made one for you.
Yeah, that you can link them up to.
Cool, man. All right. So documents for your clients, clear communication, making sure that they really understand what it is that you need. So it's like the reverse of, you started with listening to your client's needs.
Yep.
But at the same time, you have to over communicate, make it really, really easy for your client to listen to what it is that you need to help them out the most, right?
Yeah, they need to know that stuff. They need to know that this is going to secure them anyways, because they don't want to send you anything. They don't want to send you anything wrong. They want to make sure what they send you is what you need. So you need to give them the tools. They need to do so.
Okay, cool. So what's our tip number 9?
Yeah, the last tip of the day, I'm going to say always be friendly.
Nice, man.
Okay, so it sounds maybe bogus a bit, but when you're working online like that, or even with regular clients, at some point you're going to build some friendships. And the attitude, your mood is very important in studio. So don't be grumpy. Don't be the arrogant type of sound tech.
I'm out. I'm out.
So I love to laugh. This is part of who I am. I love to have fun when I work. It doesn't matter with whom I work with. We're going to laugh at some point. We're going to have fun in the studio. We're going to have time when laughing is, I'm going to say you end up being more productive in the end.
Yeah.
And it kind of helped the trust again. I'm going to go back to point number 1. If you're able to laugh at yourself and laugh, in general in life and be a fun guy, people will love you for sure.
Yeah. There's another thing too about doing all this communicating online. And it's first of all, what we do is exhausting. It's exhausting work. There's a lot of stuff that we have to do where you're just too tired. You're not feeling very funny at that moment. A lot of emails we have to send, a lot of messages, and online communication. Thank God for the emoticon, right? Because because it needs it, all this messaging. It's really easy to misconstrue the mood of a message, and a written message, an email, or text message, and that sort of thing. Oh, yeah.
No, exactly. No, this is something very important for me. So I'm always being positive any way I try. And, I love, having fun with people and set up a very positive and nice mood, a relaxed mood in the studio.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's take a break and we'll come back in for the jam session. Before we go, though, Chris, I know you had set up something really cool for the rock stars to download that's going to help them out with their process. You want to tell them about it?
Yeah, actually what I'm going to do here is I'm setting up a cheat sheet of the 9 points that we shared today. Okay, so you'll be able to download this cheat sheet and keep that in your computer, and you can refer to that sheet anytime you need it, especially if you want to go forward with more of, you want to expand your business online. So I'm going to note everything down in this sheet. It's going to be free for you to download at mixdown.online/rockstars.
Right on. Thank you so much
All
for
right.
doing that. Rockstars, that's for you. So go check it out. Sometimes it's nice to just print something like this out and stick it by the bathroom mirror. You know, it's like your daily affirmations of how to go about your work and your business. I need stuff like that all the time. So thanks for doing that, Chris. Rockstars, you'll find links to all the stuff we're talking about, including a link to the downloadable cheat sheet, which will just take you right there, in the show notes, which are at rsrockstars.com, and then just search for Chris Selim, Selim. We'll be back in a minute for the jam session, so stay tuned. Hey everybody, it's Lid Shaw, and I want to thank you so much for listening to this episode of Recording Studio Rockstars. I really appreciate you, and I really appreciate your time. And as a way of saying thank you, I've created a special mix tutorial just for you, Rockstars, totally free, called the Mix Master Bundle. With it, you get over 2 hours of detailed videos watching over my shoulder as I mix a song in my studio. Plus, I give you the free ebook that explains how I recorded the tracks, and you get downloadable multi-tracks so that you can practice your mixes, including the Pro Tools session file, using nothing but stock plugins in Pro Tools, all of which you would find in any other DAW, whether you're on Logic or Studio One or Reaper. Maybe you're struggling with trying to improve your mix technique, or maybe you just simply don't have access to multi-track files or can't record a full drum set in your studio. I wanted to give you a chance to create your own mixes from full drum kit, bass, and guitars recorded in my studio. The song is called American Winter, and it's off my instrumental record Skadoosh, and it's all available for you totally free right now. All you need to do to get it is text Mix Master Bundle to 33444, and I'll send it directly to your email. Again, that's Mix Master Bundle with no space to 33444, or you can go directly to mixmasterbundle.com, enter your email, and I'll send all the files directly to you. Thanks so much, Rockstars. We'll see you guys in the jam session. Cheers. Hey, Rockstars. We're back now for the jam session. My guest today is Chris Saleem from mixdown.online. Chris, are you ready to jam?
I am ready to jam.
All right, dude. When you started out in recording, and particularly remote online production, what was holding you back?
Wow, I would say, okay, even before the online production stuff, I would say knowledge. Knowledge was holding me back. I was in that band when we first talked earlier. And when I quit that band, I was like, okay, I would love to, like at age 14, to be a music producer, but I don't know nothing about music production. So that was holding me back in a sense. So I just decided to go through a music production program in the town I was living in at the moment. And this is what I did. I studied for a year intensively. And from that point on, I was able to start my production career.
Cool. What about when you were starting your online production? I mean, what was the thing that was holding you back there? Because I think it's a remarkable thing that you're doing, and I think it's exciting.
I don't know if there was anything holding me back. It just happened. When you get a call from someone in France asking you to produce their album, you just do it. And you just go with the tools you know at the moment, and you do the best you can to make it work.
I was going to say that, listening to you talk about it when you explained that the client isn't sitting and listening the whole time, that was a big aha moment for me, because when I've imagined the idea of doing remote production, I always thought like that's the thing that would hold me back, is thinking, oh, well, how am I going to, the client's got to be online and listening in and making comments, and what do we do with technology and delays and everything else? And I like your answer. You're like, no, the client's not listening in. You just send them what you did today,
That's
afterwards. That's
But
great.
you know what? It's the same, when you want to build yourself a house, you deal with a contractor. What's the most important thing? To check out the plans. Once the plans are done, you leave the guy alone who's going to build your house.
Yeah, you'd be stepping on nails if you were hanging around the construction site all day long, especially somebody like me barefoot, man.
There you go.
All right. So, Chris, how about sharing some of the best advice you received?
The best advice I received, I would say, I don't know it was from whom, but this is something getting it right at the source.
Yeah.
Now I'm talking about recording, I'm talking about mixing. Sometimes we tend to put the mixing stage as a very important stage. It is very important, but we tend to forget that the recording stage is as much, if not more important than the mixing stage. So getting it right at the source. This is something this is one of the best advice I got. And I try to just work that out every time I'm in the recording studio. So put a lot of energy into recording, have a very nice source and make sure you have good mic placement and, experiment a lot on the recording stage, to have the best recording possible.
It's so true. It's so true. The easiest mixes are the ones that start with great tracks.
Exactly. If you look at tutorials on YouTube or, mix with the masters and stuff, all these big mixers and stuff, they do a lot, but in another way, they don't do a lot, but they have very good material to work with.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, that's why I'm very inspired to just record the best you can, the best quality recording you can.
Yeah. And make sure that when you go to mix, you deliver something to that mix process that sounds great already.
Exactly.
Don't leave a bunch of crap in there.
Nope. There's nothing worse than just, mixing to fix stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Mixing and fixing is vexing. I don't know, something like that.
Exactly. But when you have a project to mix that it's, the only thing you need to do is just to enhance stuff and to put your feelings into it and to, be creative at the same time, just to enhance.
Yeah.
You're always going to have to correct some stuff and do corrections. But if the main part of your mixing work has to do with, bringing the song from A to Z, with good tracks, good recording tracks, it's going to make your life easier, big time.
Yeah. All right. Now, how about sharing a recording tip, hack, or secret sauce, something our rock stars could use in their studio today?
Okay. I would say always think of the mix when you're arranging and when you're recording. I mixed a lot of songs from other that I didn't produce, that I didn't record. And, a lot of times, you get into a mixing session and at some point, like, you know what? I think the problem with this song is the arrangement. If we had a proper arrangement, the mix would be even better. If we had proper recording, a recording arrangement, for example, instead of having only that one guitar playing, maybe, you should have doubled the guitar, playing a different part. Pan these, that's going to help me as a mixer to pan these. So always thinking of the mix when you're doing your recording or your arrangements, because that has to do a lot with a mix.
I'm going to spin that back to you. I wrote down a quote that we can both steal right now. So don't fix your track in the mix. Fix your mix in the track.
Oh, Lidge, you're going to have to send me that one out. It's awesome. It's an amazing one.
All right, cool. So now how about sharing a favorite hardware tool, something physical that you just love having with you on sessions? It seems to make your sessions better.
NS10s.
NS10s. Oh, yeah. Nice, man. I definitely have them in all my sessions, but I'm not always convinced that they're making my sessions better. Tell us about them, though.
It's mainly in my mixing sessions. They're shitbox, to be honest with you. They're just bigger shitbox than a regular shitbox, but the mids, it's just the mid side of that, that sound is just so honest. It doesn't lie to you.
Yeah.
So that's what I like about them. So I always, I do maybe 70% of my mixes to 75% of my mixes on the NS10s.
Now, what do we think about the high end on NS10s? Do we find, sometimes I feel like I'm struggling with the high frequencies.
Yeah. Which high end?
Exactly. So sometimes I feel like I'm not adding enough high end because I'm not necessarily noticing it missing, for example. I'm just, maybe that's why. Do you have a way that you sort of approach making sure that you got the right amount of low end and the right amount of high end when you're mixing on NS10s?
Yeah, like, I'm going to use the NS10s mainly for the balance of the instruments within each other. I think that is, if you balance your tracks well on the NS10s, they were probably going to be well balanced anywhere else. Now, when it comes to frequency, the NS10s are going to be good for, anything that is in the midsection of the frequency range. Now, if we're talking about the bottom end, the low end, now my NS10s are hooked up to I have like a small sub hooked up to them without any crossovers. I don't need any crossover with the NS10s because there's no, not much bottom anyways. So my sub doesn't work that much. It's just for the feel. That's it. I just want to feel the bass. That is going to help me a bit to craft the bass. But I have some other speakers that I work on to make sure that my top end is well balanced and that my low end is well balanced. And now for that, I don't use a sub for the low end. For the top end, I'm going to, I have two other pairs of speakers that I work with. I love my Dyne Audio's M2s, which is a three-way system. A bit more bassy, especially if you're used to NS10s and some other, edgy speakers. But the top end, though, is very, I would say precise, but colored a bit. So if I have too much or not enough, I'm gonna know right away.
Interesting. That's great.
My M2. So yeah, I try to, at that point, I'm gonna go down to the other speakers.
That's cool. That's cool. I like that. All right. So now how about sharing a favorite software tool, something that maybe it's a favorite one, maybe it's just something exciting that you're using now that you want to tell the rock stars about?
Yeah, my main tool, Cubase.
Cool. That's right.
Yeah, I was raised on Cubase. I was, that's the tool I work. That's my main DAW. I have a copy of Pro Tools. I think I have Pro Tools 10. I mixed a few albums on Pro Tools. I work on a church on weekends, and they have Pro Tools on the recording studio, and so I do know Pro Tools, a bit. But Cubase for me is my main tool. I do everything with Cubase. For me, it's the best DAW ever.
What are things that so somebody doesn't know anything about Cubase? What are some of the things that are unique about it or that make it stand out?
Unique. Now we're going to go into like specific features if we're talking about unique.
Or is there anything about just the way it, the philosophy of how it works that you really appreciate?
Yeah, it's way different than, like the editing part of it is different than Pro Tools, for example. So, I do photography, so I'm used to Photoshop. And Photoshop, the way they use their tools is a bit like Cubase. Cubase makes me think of that. So it's very easy for me to work the tools in Cubase for editing. And the way, they have like stack modes when you're recording and playlists, a bit like similar to the playlist, but stack modes is something that is very cool, especially when you're recording drums, where you can stack your tracks. So you can record several takes and they're going to stack up visually. You're going to see them visually stacking up. You can group them together very easily, put them in the same folder and just edit your drums, go from one part to another, and all the tracks will be linked together. It's pretty easy to work with at that point on the recording part. And the mixing stage, there's a lot of stuff going on, even with stock plugins included in Cubase. It's pretty awesome what they have. They have like a channel strip that is apart from the inserts. And so, a lot of good stuff. So if someone, go ahead.
Well, I think I recall that originally Cubase sort of was laid out a little bit more like a mixer where you had built-in EQ and compression or something like that. Is that true? Sort of like Harrison Mix Buses does? You don't have to add it as a plugin?
Exactly. That's the channel strip they have.
That's really cool. I think
they call that.
Valuable stuff.
Yeah. So they have an EQ. They have like 3 different compressors, a gate, saturation, limiters, de-essers and stuff like that, directly on that strip. And you can put that strip pre-insert or post-insert if you want.
Well, that's cool. All right, well, let's jump forward. So now how about a resource for the business side of doing this? Somebody wants to do this for more than just a hobby. Do you have a resource or some advice that you want to share?
If it's more than a hobby, that means you want to make money. That means you need to invoice. I'm going to say, get yourself a good invoice software. If you're cheap like me, you're probably going to do everything in Excel.
Okay.
So that's my favorite tool for invoicing. So I'm just too cheap to have like a monthly payment to a company that handles everything. I know it's pretty practical at some point, but Excel or a Google Sheet, will work perfectly. You can add up your logo and stuff. You can like set up a very nice invoice, that is.
Let me ask you this: If you're already using Google Docs and you're using Google Sheets, what's the reason why you might still be using Excel or use it instead of Google Sheets? Is there a compelling reason, or is it just you just happen to use them both?
I don't use Sheets pretty often. I mainly use Excel. All my invoicing is in a Dropbox folder. So my wife does the accounting. So
nice.
And she does the invoicing, so that's a very good thing. I used to do everything myself, but now she took over. So
now, is your wife a resource that everybody can use? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, probably.
Well, groovy, man. All right. Well, now how about sharing, you've already talked about it, but talked about Google Docs, but what other online organizational resources do you like to use and you want to share with the rock stars?
I'm a big fan of Evernote.
Nice.
I love Evernote.
Tell us about Evernote, because I know it. I use it occasionally, but I don't use it a lot. And I know that other people who really use it, they really love it. Tell us why it's great.
It's first of all, it's accessible through your phone, your iPad, your computer. You can set up a free account if you want. Now I have a paid account because I like that software so much. And I write my music ideas in Evernote. My client, all the stuff I need not to forget about the project, I'm going to have it listed in Evernote. You can create folders and stuff. All my blog ideas, my video ideas, my YouTube channel, everything is listed into Evernote. You can actually tag, you can tag all of your notes. So it's pretty easy to look for something you're looking for, like a specific note that you want to go back to. You can just tag everything. And even then, I don't use Evernote to its full potential. I'm just, scratching the surface. But from what I do anyways, I love it. And I think it's very practical and easy to use.
Do you find that there is a problem if the other person you're working with doesn't also regularly use Evernote?
No, it's not a problem. I use it mainly for personal use, like, with business and stuff, but, for my own personal notes.
So if you've written something up and you want to share it with me, would you export it into an email and just send it off to me, something like that?
I can do that, but I can actually share it directly through Evernote, and you're going to get an email asking you to download Evernote for free.
Okay. One other really cool thing about Evernote that I like a lot is it has handwriting recognition built into it. So you can take a photo, you could take notes, like I've been writing handwritten notes while we're on this podcast. I can take a photograph of that, upload that into Evernote, and it will analyze all the handwriting so that if I went to go search for something we talked about, it would search it just like it was a typed in text, So that's pretty hip. It's also very handy if you go to an event and you collect a bunch of business cards, you can just take photos of the business cards and it'll organize them for you and stuff.
Yeah, I do that when I at a restaurant with a client, take my bill, my invoice, snap it in Evernote, take a picture, and my wife can take that afterwards to add this to the accountant side.
Nice, man.
Of
nice
the business. So.
All right, so moving on. We're going into our final two questions. These are both hypothetical. Rock stars, you may know them well if you've been listening to the podcast. But this first one is imagining yourself having to start all over, Chris. You leave Montreal, you and your wife, your family leave, and you go to some new faraway place, and you need to start all over again. You decide you need a new, simple setup to record with. You need to find people to make music with, and you need to make ends meet. Or just pretend this is advice you're giving to somebody who's, young Chris starting all over again. What would you suggest for a simple setup, affordable setup? How do you find people to make music with? And then what's a good way to make ends meet so you don't have to deliver pizzas, unless delivering pizzas is your suggestion?
I would say, no, don't deliver pizza. Actually, you could. Yeah, you could to start up to help you get some money to pay for that simple setup. I'm going to go with a simple sound interface like the Stangberg UR242, which is like $200. Something very cheap, that gives me access to 2 preamps and 2 line inputs as well. And there's a Cubase version directly available and included in that, with this interface. So that's a basic setup. I need a very good pair of headphones. I would go with a DT770 like you're wearing right now from Bayer Dynamics.
Yeah.
Give me that pair of headphones. Give me a Rode microphone, a cheap Rode condenser microphone that is affordable, a 57, that is good for to record a lot of stuff. You can do a lot with a
Shure
57.
SM57, yeah.
Yep. And
You can also use it to hammer nails and build your studio.
exactly. And a basic keyboard controller,
Nice.
and you use whatever is available into your DAW, the one you work with, the one that you have access to.
Well, so what I like about what you just described and throwing in the keyboard controller is it's implicit that with that controller and virtual instruments, you can actually record and create tracks. And with a simple setup like that, you could literally start your online remote production business.
Exactly.
With nothing more than that. You could
That's
still
it.
teach people how to record their own vocals somewhere else. Yep. You can record all the tracks, virtually. You can still record yourself doing, there's nothing.
Exactly.
There's no rule that says you can't record your drums with two mics. In fact, that's the Mixer Man technique. And I even talk about that in my Rock Stars of Drums course. But you could really produce full tracks with a very simple setup like that if you're playing individually, one thing at a time.
Yeah,
and build it that way. So now how about finding people to record?
I would probably find where is the hypest place in town where people and musicians meet.
Nice.
That's what I would do. Yeah. So I would probably go and maybe take a look at the what's available downtown, the bars, the music halls, or whatever, whatever there's a band playing or an artist playing. I would go there and make friends, basically.
Now,
I wouldn't get any business cards whatsoever. Just go and make friends.
Yeah. So that's for your local scene. Now, what about if you want to start finding people online to produce remotely?
I would. Now it's hard for me to say because I was lucky enough my business was based on word to mouth,
Mm-hmm.
So this is how I got my clients overseas, by producing people locally first that were playing overseas. And people heard, these productions and called me. That's the way I went into working on the international level. Now, if I was to do that again, I would be aggressive on social media. I would do like I do for my YouTube channel. I'm kind of doing the same thing all over again, but, on a different perspective, different level with my YouTube channel. So it's just a matter of being present on social media. Share, whatever you need to share, document your life, and put that on YouTube, put that on social media, and create your craft. I would say write music, record yourself, and put that on SoundCloud. Make that available for everyone to hear. And talk about what you do and try to get into special Facebook groups and try to get some connections out of that and friendships out of that.
Yeah, well, I liked how your story took you to France initially and you met people and made connections. And then I imagine that from there, it grew through sort of word of mouth and people knowing each other and spreading, the network of your relationships. And I had this vision while you were telling this story right now and remembering that of, somebody younger having a really portable studio and thrown in a backpack and just traveling. It's like if you can kind of kind of find the local scene and local people as you're backpacking around, who knows, maybe you're making ends meet, could just be busking on the street for a while,
Hey man, this is a freaking nice image. I like that.
Yeah. You travel around with a simple portable recording studio, you busk, you meet other musicians everywhere you go, and then you just build this network and stay in contact with them while you continue to travel, and you start producing tracks for them wherever you are,
And the reality is that it's pretty easy to do it these days.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to get a simple setup and backpacking and from town to town.
All right. So now here's the final question for you, Chris.
Yeah.
This hypothetical is, we're going to take the studio Wayback Machine and go back in time. We're going to find young Chris. You're hanging out. I don't know what you're doing, skateboarding, ice fishing. I don't know what you guys do up there.
Ice fishing, nice.
It's not skateboarding. You'd be playing hockey, of course.
Probably building an igloo.
Building an igloo. All right. We're going to go and we're going to knock on young Chris's igloo. Hopefully you don't knock one of those ice squares in and it lands on your head. And then you come to the door of your igloo and you look at it and say, "Older Chris, what are you doing here?" And you say, "Well, young Chris, I've come here to give you this one bit of advice. Here's the single most important thing you need to know about to become a recording studio rock star yourself one day." What advice would you give yourself, Chris?
Okay, I would say don't spend on equipment based on your emotions.
Nice. But that's how we shop. It's all around emotions.
That's how you get in trouble too. But yeah, so that happened to me when I had the studio I'm in right now. When I had that build, I made some. If I had to redo that studio again, I would have done that differently. For instance, I first of all, when I bought my Dynaudio M2s, they're nice boxes, nice speakers, but I bought them, because I followed the advice of the person who made the plans, the studio plans. Mm-hmm. He was, telling me that, you need these boxes and they need to be in a soffit wall,
Oh, so they're big speakers. They're big wall monitors.
Yeah, they're not like super big, but still,
they're
yeah, exactly. And honestly, I would say they're a bit too big for, from now that I think of it, they are a bit too big. And the thing is, it cost me a lot of money to first, buy these speakers without even trying them.
Yeah.
Because, it was like so emotional about, buying new speakers, the new studio. I need the new speakers and they need to be in the wall, soffit in the wall. And, it needs to be done that way because that guy told me so.
Right.
So I was all emotional about that. And I just made the purchase and, just building that wall was crazy expensive, so I could have saved a lot of money just if I would just buy a normal pair of speakers instead, and I ended up, they ended up sounding so bad, soffit in the wall.
Oh no.
That I just needed to bring them on normal speaker stands.
Interesting. Wow. So they really weren't tuned well in your room.
No, at all. So it was a mistake and that cost me a lot. And that's it, So this is what I would tell myself if I went back in time.
Nice. Well, I mean, you ended up with a pair of NS10s, and that was maybe a little bit more of a practical decision. That if you look out in the world, it's like everybody's got NS10s. So
no, exactly. So I have that, and I have
get what everybody's got.
No, exactly. So and they're like it's a different world than the Dynaudios.
Yeah.
And so I should have, at that time, I should have kept the BM15 I had before. The other pair of Dynaudios I sold to get these ones. But they cost me too much for.
I don't have Dynaudios, but I do like them. And I have friends who have them and I always enjoy listening. And I like how they kind of hype up the sound a little bit,
Yeah, they do. They do sound good though. I'm happy. I'm happy to mix in them.
Yeah.
But it's only, the construction side of the wall made for these speakers that didn't work out. It cost a lot,
Yeah.
So,
you can put some potted plants in those soffits, maybe.
Exactly. I'm going to do something with these holes. So.
Well, good advice, Chris. Good advice. So, rock stars, don't make your purchases based on emotion.
No.
Even though secretly we all make our purchases based on emotion.
I know, but at least try to be emotional on cheap stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Emotional on cheaper, more affordable stuff. Pause. If you're going to buy something, maybe don't make it too impulse. Maybe decide, think about it for a second,
Yeah, wait a week.
Wait a few
days.
Wait a few days. Give yourself a moment to thought. At least wait 24 hours if you can. And, just, one of the things that helped me out is because I spent all my money on everything just for gear for a long time. It's all I did. I didn't save anything. And it's still hard to do, quite honestly. But
it is.
But there was a point at which I just stopped buying gear because I had enough, and it was like I realized that I made a decision that for me and my studio, every time I bought a new piece of gear, it couldn't be me buying the gear. It had to be my clients because I'm making music professionally for people. And that's where the money has to come from,
Exactly.
Unless you want it to be your hobby. If you want it to be your hobby, then, Godspeed, and that's fine. Don't worry about it. Just enjoy yourself.
Yeah, but it's an expensive hobby, I'm telling you.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool. Chris, thanks so much for being on Recording Studio Rockstars with us. Let our listeners know how they can find you, how they can follow you, and then also remind us where we can check out this fantastic cheat sheet that you've created for us.
Yeah, again, you can download that at mixdown.online/rockstars. And you can meet me on YouTube. If you look YouTube/Mixdown Online. That's my YouTube channel where I share music production and mixing and recording tips for music creators. And if you're a Cubase lover and you like Cubase, you're going to be well served on my YouTube channel because this is my main tool. So, I have a lot of videos where I share some Cubase tips and stuff. So this is where you can meet me on YouTube and on social media. You can meet me on Instagram and Twitter at I am Chris Saleem. And you can meet me on Facebook /MixdownOnline and my website, mixdown.online.
Nice. Well, Rockstars, lucky for you, I'm going to include links to all this stuff also in the show notes, which you can find just at rsrockstars.com, and then just search for Chris Selim, Selim. And once again, Chris has kindly created the 9 tips on recording, mixing, and producing clients remotely cheat sheet for you. So if you wrote down all the stuff we talked about, wonderful. If you want to just go download this sheet and have it nicely organized for you, it's going to have his 9 points and then all of these details about it embedded within. So great stuff. Chris, thanks again for being on Recording Studio Rockstars. You rock, dude. I look forward to seeing more of you around the studio. We got to meet in person. Hopefully I'll see you at Summer NAMM.
Yeah, I'm planning to come down, Lidge. It's going to be fun to meet you.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Party time.
For sure. Hey, thanks, my friend. It was amazing. It was fun to be on the podcast. Thanks
all right,
again.
Chris. Cheers, man. Thanks so much for listening to Recording Studio Rockstars. If you enjoyed the show and want to help make it better, please leave a rating and review on iTunes to help reach more people. You can click directly over to iTunes or go to recordingstudiorockstars.com/review for an easy explanation. And if you want more free content, all you have to do is text RS Rockstars to 33444. Again, that's RS Rockstars to 33444, and I'll keep you in the loop with articles, videos, and podcast updates. And I'll let you know about any upcoming giveaway offers, all totally free. Thanks for listening. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is Recording Studio Rockstars. Now, go make great music.